Hello, Adrian from Brijj here, and I'm going to show you how to raise a request. Really simple process, should take us about 3-4 minutes. So make sure, first thing first, that you are on the actual stakeholder Kanban and go to the pending column, and up here you'll see a button which simply says raise request. Press that and you'll be taken to the raise request wizard. So the first thing it's going to ask you is to give a subject line. So this is basically the headline to the request and just gives a really brief summary of what it is that you're hoping to ask your data analysts or your insight team, whoever provides insights in your organization. So for today's purposes, I'm going to put productivity by staff member. So the next question is an actual description. So while the subject is much like a subject line in an email, the description is much like the body in an email that you may send at this point in time. So this just provides extra context for your data teams to understand what it is that you want to know. This is really important because data teams often have a problem with not actually receiving enough context. This causes the rework. They have to come back and ask you. It means that requirements gathering takes longer, and it actually is one of the major reasons why projects fail. So you want to provide as much context as possible, as best you can. So for today's purposes, I am going to put, I need to know how productive each member is of staff in the customer support team. If I can get data covering the last calendar year, that would be great, split by support group. I'm trying to add extra context. I can also attach files to provide that context, maybe a previous report, something like that. And I can also add links to maybe internal resources to help my data teams understand what it is that I'm looking to do. But for today's purposes, keep it simple. I'm just going to click next. The next three questions are also really important. So a mistake that people often make when they ask for a piece of insight from their teams is they just tell them what it is that they want. But often what they want is not the most important thing. It's actually what they intend to do with that data. That's how we create outcome-based analytics. So the next question is, what are you actually going to do with this insight? I mean, take the example that we've just spoken about, wanting to know how productive each team member is in the customer support team. Without further context about what you intend to do with that, that could be because you're intending to make cuts. That could be because you're intending to promote someone. So let's say we add that extra context. Let's say the response here is, we want to implement an incentivization scheme to increase productivity, and we need historical data to build some benchmarks. That detail about what you intend to do with the data, what the outcome is, changes everything for the data team. They now know which data to interrogate. They need to now know how to frame their modeling. They have that context that really provides them with the information they need. So next question is, what kind of output do you need? You might want a BI dashboard built in Tableau. You may want a data table just thrown over to you in Excel. You may even just want a number in an email. And this gives you the ability to specify what it is you're actually looking for. But for today's purposes, I'm just going to say any type of output because I'm going to work with the data team to come to the best conclusion during the requirements gathering stage. This third question on this tab is so important, and it's, what kind of answer do you need? I need to provide a little bit of context for this. We've got an evaluation, we've got proof. And when we talk about evaluation, what we're talking about is you have a question and you want that question answered without a specific result in mind. So you may be asking a question, you want the data team to go away, analyze the data, and just give it to you straight. That's what an evaluation is. Now, the opposite of that is something that we term as a proof. Let me give you an example. If you're a salesman and you ask one of your data teams to position your organization as one of the best in the market, if you say to your data team, how do we perform in this given metric compared to our competitors, they will go away and they will tell you the answer to that. You may be the bottom, you may be in the middle. You may not get the answer that you need. However, if you ask your data analysts, I need to position us as one of the top performing people in the market, that's a different question. And your data teams will look at the data in a different way in order to answer that. When you're doing that sort of thing, what you're asking for is not an evaluation, it's a proof. And it's incredibly important that that's clear to your data teams when you ask your initial request, because it frames everything. It makes a huge difference in how they're actually going to answer your question. So if you do actually need a proof, the system will ask you to provide extra context about what it is you hope your data teams may find. But for today's purposes, I'm going to keep that simple, and I'm just going to put it down as an evaluation. Next question is around deadlines. So, when must the insight be delivered? I'm going to put in a random date here using the date picker. And you can also specify whether or not the request is actually going to be recurring, or if it's just a one-time thing. That's quite a simple, obvious toggle button there, and you can make changes based on that. But again, for today's purpose, I'm going to keep that very, very simple. Click next. The next question is around privacy and actually who are the primary users of the insight. So you might be the person making the request, but you might not be the person it's actually for. That might be your manager or somebody completely different in the organization. So you can select that here. You can say no, and who is the primary user? You can choose from the drop down. But for today's purposes, I'm going to say that I am the primary user. Even if you are the primary user, though, there may be other people who need to be privy to the information in the request. They may be part of the project team. And so you can add them here. And anybody that you do add here will automatically be added as a contributor to your ticket. So for today's purposes, I'm just going to select Abby Andrews, and I'm then going to click finish. There you go. The request has been added to the Kanban board, ready to be picked up by one of your insight creators and moved to the next stage, which is requirements gathering.